Notable areas including Lucy, Cocoa Walk, Cambridge, the Half Moon area, Bethel Town, reflecting steady nationwide recovery and the continued commitment to ensuring reliable service for affected areas. Flow, Jamaica, reports similar upward trajectory with approximately 60% of and 1% of mobile sites now operational as of Monday, November 24th. Restoration is quickly advancing in parts of Trelawney and Westmoreland. 3 critical transport links have been restored along the Port Antonio to Anota Bay, Mandeville to Santa Cruz, and Port Antonio to Morant Bay routes. Technical teams continue restoration efforts, bringing mobile sites back online in several communities in Westmoreland, St. Mary, Portland, Clarendon, and Manchester, reflecting steady progress for connectivity. Madam Speaker, one of the biggest hindrances for them is power. The sooner that they get back power, which I'll soon touch on, is the quicker that the telcos will be back up in almost all areas across Jamaica. Madam Speaker, 2 more things before I touch to the real one that everybody is waiting to hear about. ATMs are very critical because if you don't have money in a time like this, you don't have any talk. The credit card don't work, promissory note don't work, and man want them cash for them goods, and you can't do nothing without cash. So we have made a special push through the Jamaica Bankers Association. 78% of ATMs, 704 of 907 are now back in service, along with 78% of point-of-sale terminals, representing 18,501 devices restored. Recovery remains uneven across parishes. ATM stands at 59.6% in St. James, 38.1% in Trelawney, 48.6% in Westmoreland, but banks continue to restore service wherever physical access, power, and telecommunications can safely be secured. We are still working between Starlink generators, GPS, to get as much more up as possible, especially in the 5 most affected parishes, because without that and without light, they will see no Christmas, that they will have nothing to be able to see with their eyes and buy with their money. Universal Service Fund, critical, especially for those areas. Again, Melissa caused disruption to USF public Wi-Fi network of 408 community hotspots. Only 72 remained online, and the Western parishes suffered a total loss of all 156 sites, cutting off thousands from education, communication, and emergency support. In response, the USF has rapidly shifted to Starlink satellite systems powered by solar energy, allowing fast off-grid restoration where traditional infrastructure collapsed. In just 14 days, engineers have restored in 17 hard-hit communities across Westmoreland, Hanover, St. Elizabeth, and St. James, Manchester, Trelawney, and St. Anne. We aim to deploy at least 90 Starlink sites by mid-December, supported by private sector technicians now helping. This will allow the fund to begin restoration in central and eastern parishes. The recovery effort is estimated at $863 million, covering satellite equipment, solar power systems, and installation services, an investment that strengthens Jamaica's digital resilience moving forward. So, Madam Speaker, again, those community Wi-Fis are even more important than ever in this disaster, because those places are in remote areas that MPs chose off the beaten track. And if they can have that Wi-Fi so those kids can do some homework, speak to your family, go on the social media and do the usual thing, like what my colleague over here does every day. Ian. Every day. 863 million is what it's going to cost to redo all of the damage for the my My one has 863, so that one was done for you. Madam Speaker, members, let me move now to what I think is the most critical aspect of the presentation and the most critical aspect of any chance of quick restoration for the country to come back to some level of normalcy and for the relief and rebuild efforts to really get underway. And that is the issue of electricity. I deliberately left this for the last. As we know, the JPS service license expires, and the license request requires that the government indicates its intention by July 2025. To call the government's position was upon expiration of the current All Island license not to renew under existing terms. It's important to point out and remind Jamaica that failure for the government to have responded would have given the JPS an automatic tenure extension to the existing license of 10 years. So understand what that means in English. If the government did not respond with a position by July 2025, automatically a 10-year extension. So you'd be talking about a license that was given in 2001, renewed in 2016, which expires in 2027, to go from 2027 to 2037 under the same existing conditions. I am not going back. Today is Melissa Day. September 3rd gone. So we're not going to talk about how we got there. We're going to talk about how we're going to fix it. So understand now that Melissa hit. And when Melissa hit, there's a need for restoration. The restoration requires money. The Emergency Disaster Fund, which is what you would call the self-insurance for the distribution and transmission line of the JPS, which is not insured because it's uninsurable, is what we have used for Beryl and for Melissa and for all the other events that we have had in recent years. So, as of right now, that fund, based on the claims that have been made already, to prepare for Melissa, has been exhausted. So it means that the JPS has 2 years on a license, and they have to raise money to restore. Several iterations, several proposals. One, JPS wants a 15-year extension. And they get 15-year extension, they will do what they need to do to find the money. Other one is that multilaterals are prepared to give them money, but they want at least 8 to 10 years extension. Where does that put us? That put us in two situations. One, a commitment that was made by this minister and this government in June of this year that any new license would be on new terms. A commitment that was made, a commitment that will stand, and no Melissa, no Trelisa, no Belinda is going to change that. So the government is now in a position now, what do we do? Because we need restoration. JPS is saying that the earliest restoration time that they can give us for the worst affected areas is April to May 2026. Can you imagine when you tell a minister that? And on top of which, they want an extended license. That is going to mean that we are in the same situation. Well, Madam Speaker, my colleagues here, many, many hours, many discussions. Cabinet, not once. Cabinet, not twice. Cabinet 3 times, including yesterday morning. And the decision, thanks to the help and the input of the Ministry of Finance, specifically Minister Williams, and the Financial Secretary, and of course, the new Minister of Efficiency, we were able to work out yesterday and get approved by Cabinet an agreement to fast-track the restoration to end of January, latest early February. Don't clap yet. Don't clap yet. On the basis that the government of Jamaica is not prepared to negotiate any extension of any license other than the process that is going to take us from now until 2027 when this existing license expires. But based on the fact that we need restoration as a country in the shortest possible time, the government of Jamaica has agreed to loan the JPS $150 million United States dollars on the basis that they will use that money, which is estimated at $75 million a month, to restore the entire grid, save and except for any special area that may not be reachable, but the major areas by the end of January, latest early February. What are the terms to make sure that the government and the taxpayers are fully protected? 5 years with an interest rate to be negotiated by the Ministry of Finance, which I'm sure will be a reasonable interest rate, because the higher the interest rate is the more it's going to pass on to the consumer. And we are cognizant of that. However, they can pay as early as 2 years. Why? Because 2 years the license expires. They'll either have a renewed license or they won't have a license. If they have a license, they can attract financing. And if they don't have a license, the government has already indicated to them, based on our July 2025 letter, that we are prepared to acquire the assets of the Jamaica Public Service, which means that our money is protected fully. So there is no risk to the Jamaican government or the taxpayers. What we have done is skillfully separated a negotiation of a loan and untied from all of these proposals of extensions. I want to point out to you very carefully, any negotiation that involved the license or amendment of license would retard the period of time when we need to get the money. We need to get the money to them or give them a commitment by tomorrow morning after we announce this today, because the cabinet decision is out. And they have committed that they will have 300 linesmen. They now have 170, all in white truck. And big thick man, you see. That's 170. But those 170 are trying to get back the biggest areas of production for the government, Montego Bay. So all the other areas in my friends and colleagues' hard-hit parishes are not getting the attention that they would get. And it's not because of anything other than what has to happen in order to get the country up and running. Can you imagine, members, in 2 weeks' time, 300 more linesmen with equipment, same trucks you see and same everything you say, having 500 linesmen additional to what JPS has as their normal crew, spread across Jamaica. The commitment that I'm making to you here that JPS has committed to me that they can have those trucks and men here by the second week of December, and that by Christmas morning, Grand Market night, they are committing, especially in the hardest hit areas, to bring back light at the most strategic locations where those that are still affected can come down into and do all that they need to do, even if it is that they don't have light 5 miles up in the hill. Madam Speaker, I am here to say that it is the best win-win situation that a government could negotiate. Because if we are to wait until April or May, which could be in June, depending on what happens, then I don't know what would happen. I can't say what would happen because it wouldn't be pretty. But most importantly, Madam Speaker, is that originally the estimates for the damage, early assessments, as JPS had said, was between $480 and $600 million. As the assessments have continued in more detail, we are down to $350 million, which is a huge difference between the original estimate and what the estimate is. So the question that's going to come is, what happens with the balance of money that's going to be needed? We were not prepared to go into that discussion. They have to come back to us because they have put a hold on dividends from July indefinitely until this matter of normalcy is resolved. So we are not going into it and giving money. Just we are making sure that we have our protection mechanisms to make sure we will have oversight in terms of technical people to evaluate those numbers, to put a program in place of the restoration, monitor it, to make sure that what has been given to us as a plan is carried out. So I say to you, Madam Speaker, as of today, November 25th, approximately 75%, 687,339 households and businesses have been reconnected to the JPS grid in less than 4 weeks. Less than 4 weeks. As I said before, they had indicated to me full restoration would not be possible until end of May 2026. And this was mainly due to the inability to raise funds with the 2 years left. Madam Speaker, I want to say to you, before I close, that you know my stance with the JPS when Beryl came. And you know that it didn't end, or it ended well, but it didn't start well. I have seen a complete change, despite the fact there are still gaps. There's no two ways about it. There's areas that are not affected, that still can't get back light, not realizing that the transmission line is coming all the way from the west to the east. They have given me a commitment, Madam Speaker, because you know that I'm someone. So, path 1, which was a JPS's path, was 505 line workers, timeline April, May 2026. I need 5 minutes. No.
Minister, you may conclude.
Conclude. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I really appreciate it. Part 2 is 470 line workers with an estimation of January to February 2026. Madam Speaker, for St. Mary, the commitment is to bring back all areas long before Christmas. They say Christmas. They say if they get the equipment here, they will move. They said, Madam Speaker, for Portland, same. For Clarendon, 95%. Remaining 5 will be due to access. This is before Christmas, you know. This is not January, February. Madam Speaker, that's Manchester. St. Anne has some major problems, Madam Speaker. They are saying 80% before Christmas. They have some major issues with the substation at Cardiff Hall. I want to get the Western region, Madam Speaker, and I'll close on this one for you. I'm sure member from Westmoreland here, formerly from Hanover, will be interested in this. Westmoreland, St. James, St. Elizabeth, Trelawney, and Hanover. Currently, as you know, there are several areas that have received light. St. James, Freeport, Hip Strip, Montego Bay Town, Fairway, Witter Village, Shops of Rosal, Spring Garden, Fairfield, Shore, and Coral Gardens. I understand that they're going to be going up into the hills where the tourism workers operate because of tourism coming back on track on December 15th. The other areas, Madam Speaker, is St. Elizabeth, Black River Hospital and Treasure Beach, Hanover Sandy Bay Health Center, Sandy Bay Town, Westmoreland, West End Negril, Savlamar Hospital and Savlamar Town. And last but not least, Madam Speaker, as I said before, 175,000 customers remain to be restored. And we are going to bring that number forward to January, February latest, but we're going to do a push to see what we can do. So for those MPs that are in those areas, if you could furnish me with your areas that you believe would be the most critical areas for Christmas, at least for Christmas. No, it can't be all. I'm sure you'll be understanding of the situation. It won't be all. All won't be till the end of January. Then I think we can work together to make sure with JPS that we use information coming from you and see how we can coordinate. Madam Speaker, I will not detain the House anymore. I thank you for your leniency and to say to you and to say to the people of Jamaica that we have made sure that we have not allowed adversity such as Melissa to take us off track with the negotiation of a new license in 2027 with whoever that is. And we have been able to find a way to bring forward restoration without putting the government or the taxpayers of this country at any exposure in relation to any possibility of not being repaid in some way, shape, or form, including JPS shares, if it comes to that. Which, as I said before, 2 years we have a decision. Either there'll be a successful negotiation with the current operator, or the government will have to act and find somebody to come in. And whichever way it goes, the $150 million will be protected, whichever way it goes. I thank you for your time, and I say to you, I know the suffering is hard, but this is a huge, 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 huge move in terms of bringing forward so we can get back to normalcy as quickly as possible. God bless you.
Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the ways of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law do we meditate day and night. For we shall be like trees planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth our fruit in our season. Our leaves shall not wither, and whatsoever we do shall prosper. If you're just joining us, we were listening to Darrell Vaz, the Honorable Darrell Vaz, Minister of Energy and of Technology, giving our statement in the Parliament about the recovery in Jamaica. At this time, we're going to be having a response to that statement by the Shadow Minister, Philip Paulwell, and then we're going to take the questions, and then we're going to the show.
Of this country. The workers of Petrojam, the workers of JPSCO, the workers of Flow, Digicel, all of them. The truckers, all the people in public transportation, for the tremendous work that they have done to alleviate the tremendous difficulty that this country has been burdened with through the passage of Hurricane Melissa. The major portion of my response is in relation to energy, but the minister did make some other remarks in relation to restoration of the rural school bus service. And Minister, you have mentioned that it was only Westmoreland and Southern St. James that were not restored. But I gather that Hanover, the member from Western Hanover, has already mentioned that she's calling upon the government to see to the restoration of our rural bus service. You have also mentioned, in relation to telecommunications, the problem with those free Wi-Fi locations under the Universal Service Fund. I just want to say, Minister, long before Hurricane Melissa, we have seen in so many of these locations, the sites were just not working. No telecommunications services provided to the site. So I am requesting that as you attempt now to restore these sites that fell due to the hurricane, there needs to be a broader look at maintenance in relation to all the hundreds of locations that are not working in areas unaffected by the hurricane. There has to be a maintenance provision for Universal Service Fund. And as the person who started that body, I really am urging that the funding be put in place for full maintenance so that our communities can really maximize their benefits. You had mentioned before you got into JPS that Petrojam is due for maintenance, which means that it will be shut down for a while. You didn't say when it will be closed and for how long. And that facility is a most important facility. Now, as was highlighted, you've also mentioned that there was severe damage to the solar plant, Paradise Solar. You mentioned the restoration of Dr. Bird, JPPC, and West Kingston Power Partners, but you didn't say a word about the regasification facility that was taken offline and presumably now back online, and for which the CEO of JPS had indicated would result in some price increases to the customer because of the use of heavy fuel oil and diesel for generation in that period. So we'd like to hear more on that. But to get to the main issue, and you have dealt with the restoration efforts of the JPSCO, highlighting the large elephant in the room, which was your letter to them advising of the termination of their license come 2027. And Minister, well, you know, the minister, one of the first things I like to ask about is this letter, because I thought I had friends in JPSCO, but not even them will share the letter with me, and perhaps eventually you will share the letter so that we can fully understand what did the letter say. Minister, 5 minutes gone already?
20 minutes.
So, Mr. Speaker, we ask that the member's time be extended for 15 minutes to complete his presentation.
The request is on the floor. Those in favor? Those against, the ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Much obliged, Mr. Speaker, and to my colleagues. Minister, because this is a backdrop, I just want to spend 2 minutes in reminding the country of the position that we have maintained on this side. Because there's no magic to 2027, as it was when I was Minister of Telecommunications in 1999. There was no magic to 2038, which was the date for the telecom license to be expired. And that, as a minister, fervent on getting justice, fervent on seeing changes, one doesn't have to wait until 2027. Indeed, that JPSO license was amended in 2008 by a JLP government and by me in 2016. And what we have been saying from 2023, don't wait until time runs out to adjust the license. Do it now. In fact, do it when you have leverage. So in my sectoral presentation in 2023, I mentioned certain changes that could have been negotiated then. In 2024, I repeated that. And in 2025, again, I came here and repeated what are some of the important critical changes that we need to effect before we get to July 2025, which was 2 years before July 2027. And so we waited and wasted time. And to date, a letter was sent to JPSCO. And I really want to see the content of that letter, because their interpretation is that the minister threatened them. And as a result of their interpretation, it's all over the place. All over the place. And the minister is also aware that one of the partners is seeking to exit the partnership. So it is very important, especially as we are now providing a loan to the company, a large loan, which we'll get into. The Minister of Finance isn't here, but normally in these matters, you would expect that the Minister of Finance, $150 million US is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And so Minister, there are some questions. Firstly, you've mentioned that today the government is not yet aware of the interest rate. You can't lend money without that very important element being known. So let us know what that interest rate is. But more importantly, you did say that at the end of 2 years, if the company hasn't paid back the loan by then, there's an opportunity for the government to transfer that loan into equity, into shares, and to acquire the assets. What is the value of that asset? Is the value of the asset done at today's date? So at the time when you're taking the risk, is the value going to be when you've added 150 million, enhance the value? At what point have you done that valuation? That I think is fundamental to this Parliament accepting this as a way forward. So that is a most important question. But the minister has mentioned that JPSCO wants $350 million. And presumably, that is the cost for the full restoration that is to happen now in February. But the government is only providing 150. So we are short by $200 million. Yes, and it's United States dollars. you know, before all of this, we were being told by JPS and others that the amount of money for full restoration was between 400 and 500. So we are down to 350. They are getting 150 from the government of Jamaica. Where, and I'm so happy the Minister of Finance is back, where is the balance to come from? $200 million. And very importantly, what assurance is there? Especially because restoration is tied to this 150 million. What assurance is there for the balance 200 million? And again, have commitments been given by the government for this balance to be provided? And by the way, probably when the Minister of Finance speaks, we will know exactly where that 150 million is coming from. Consol fund, borrowed money, and I think the cat bond. Minister, I don't see how we can leave Parliament today and not be told where that 150 million US is coming from. But Minister, earlier, earlier, Minister, Minister, I want to suggest a few things. I think you. I am making. I am making the submission mindful of the precarious state of our country and the desire to ensure that we are stronger after all of this. That's a very simple. And I spoke earlier, Minister, of concession and leverage. We are providing JPSCO with $150 million US. May I suggest that in providing this money, we use it for some leverage? One, JPSCO has a monopoly on transmission and distribution. You know what has happened in this hurricane? There are some persons who lost electricity totally. Totally. No, I need no protection, and I can. And just remind the minister, I was not the minister who signed the license in 2001.
Member.
I
Member.
stand by the license. I stand by the license.
Member,
But,
you're on the floor.
yes, thank you, sir.
You have the mic. But if you go into a crosstalk with another member that doesn't, you don't have the floor. Members, you don't have the floor. If you allow me, you will hear. If you allow me, you will hear.
Yeah.
I am saying to you, you have the mic. You have the floor. If you're going to a crosstalk with a member who doesn't, then you're on your own. I can't protect you.
As of now.
I am saying to you, you have the floor. Continue with the presentation.
So, Mr. Speaker, again for the records, in 2001, when the JPS was divested, I was not the minister. I improved on those terms of the license in 2016, and I'm proud of that. And I'm proud. And as the minister is realizing now, conditions warrant certain action by the government. And in 2001, there was a need for what eventually the administration entered into with that new enterprise. But the concession I'm seeking, using the leverage of the 150 million, is Firstly, and there are a number of concessions I believe the government should insist on. Today, due to a hurricane, if my neighbor has a solar system that is working 2 days after the hurricane, and I am on JPS, damaged and out of power for months, my neighbor can't run a wire across my fence and give me electricity, because that person would be in breach of the license. I'm suggesting, Minister, you get them to waive that requirement so that in periods of emergency, that period in yes, yes, yes. So, Mr. Speaker, we have some leverage now. We're giving them $150 million as loan. Let us get some leverage. Let us get some concession as a result. So I would like to recommend that in relation to emergency situation like we're under, that issue of monopoly and transmission and distribution be waived, and that anybody in Westmoreland or Hanover who can assist a neighbor with electricity now, they should be allowed to do so without the restraint of the license. I'm also suggesting, Mr. Speaker, that as we need to get our economy up and running quickly, and as we're seeing those operators in special economic zone languishing and can't expand because of the high price of electricity, use this opportunity now to get a concession and allow persons who operate in free zones to generate and distribute electricity within the free zones, within the special economic zones.
Bring that forward.
I won't go through the long list. There's just one other issue I want to raise. Because already the JPSCO has given a hint about increased prices. And last year, you and I were at one about that, when we thought that the slowness in restoration of the LNG generated electricity caused a major problem because people were paying for electricity generated by heavy fuel oil and diesel. And by the way, the Minister of Finance would be aware that the taxation on heavy fuel oil and diesel is so much greater than the taxation on LNG. And that is a matter that has to be resolved. But I believe that there has to be greater accountability on the part of the JPSCO. I can't see why you weren't able to say in your brief the date and time when LNG was restored. And that is curious because that is important. It's a cheaper generating cost to the JPS, larger because, among other things, the taxation is less. And we have to think for the future because more and more large customers are taking themselves off the grid to go straight to the LNG supplier, paying less taxes than we, those of us who are on the grid, have to pay for fuel sources that are used to generate electricity, such as heavy fuel oil and diesel. The taxation on those two fuels quadruple the taxation on LNG. And more you're going to find customers are going to be migrating to their own generated electricity. And more, those who remain on the grid will be faced with higher and higher prices. So, Mr. Chairman, as I see 1 minute remains, the Minister could indicate the critical issues, rate of interest, where the funds are coming from, where the balance will come from, because the Jamaican people do want to have electricity before Christmas, and your timeline of February, which you're sticking your neck to, could very well drift to beyond February. And we don't want that. We want to ensure that the restoration takes place as quickly as possible. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
We have questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, colleague. And I'm going to answer. I'm going to answer. Eh? Yeah, this is too much, man. If you get another one, I need another page. Firstly, Mr. Speaker, let us separate two things. Let's separate the negotiation that's going to go forward and the questions that were raised, but let's start with where we are now. This is the first opportunity that the Andrew Holness-led administration has had to start from scratch and negotiate a new license, electricity license, on behalf of the people of Jamaica. So don't tell me about 2001 and 2000. This is the first time that this has happened. This administration and this minister had given a commitment to the people of Jamaica that we were going to negotiate a new license. We didn't say who the new license would be with. And at this point, what I have stated here today is that I have separated Melissa